Yeah, absolutely. And I think coming from a seasoned CMO, that understanding of collaborating with the FDA and other agencies globally, I think is the differentiator, right? With getting the best outcome for not just the biotech or the pharma you're partnered with, but equally getting those products to treat patients. So that's fantastic. And throughout your years, both in big pharma and biotech, could you share some major setbacks that you faced through the years in leadership within these seats that you've held?
Yeah, and happy to do so. And this is one of the things that, particularly when I think about teams and going forward, which is you want to either foster a learning environment and learn from sort of the challenges as they've gone forward, or if things go swimmingly, recognize those as well. So you need to recognize the milestones when they might not have worked out the way you'd anticipated. And I often tell my teams, and I remind myself that if we knew the answer, we wouldn't have to conduct clinical trials because that's the whole point of research. You have a more than equipoise thinking about why the benefit risk should favor a particular patient segment or where you're going after. But if you knew the answer, you wouldn't actually have to conduct the clinical trial. So you have to be prepared for all of the different contingencies. Was there new information that you didn't have at the time when you were thinking about the overall benefit risk? Were there new segments that you could learn from and sort of adapt? And I have a couple of very good examples. One I'll start with. About a decade or so ago, one of my team leaders at Astellas was quite upset when she came into my office and said, "I'm regret that the trial didn't work," and she felt very guilty that it was her fault. And we spent an hour plus dissecting what she was thinking and what she was feeling and what the team was feeling. And I had to explain to her that quite the opposite. You were able to help generate the data that we know now that this is not a path to pursue for patients. The benefit is actually not there. And I went back in time and gave an example from my days as doing oncology development in pediatrics, where we had a novel tubulin inhibitor that seemed to have some promise in neuroblastoma, which unfortunately is a very debilitating pediatric oncologic condition. And we wound up designing, with the help of both the Children's Oncology Group as well as the NCI and the FDA, what was at the time the largest study in neuroblastoma with registrational intent in particular. Wound up having a control arm for ethical reasons, couldn't do it against placebo, used a historical control arm. And we were all convinced that this was going to work and was going to be phenomenally impactful for patients. Unfortunately, when the data read out, yes, there may be some hints of activity here and there, but it didn't work. And it didn't work to the impact that we had. So taking the time to go back and dissect that, saying, what went right, what went wrong. And now, for example, as you think about particularly an ultra-rare population, some of the things that we were very novel back then, even though it was a, quote, failed study, is now more common, and there's actually FDA guidance around how do you use an external control arm as you're trying to drive towards a registration path. So I would say, to the key question, which is, how do you sort of manage, or when you take those lumps, you need to celebrate them, not point the finger and say, well, what went wrong? But it's saying, all right, this didn't work out the way we had hoped or anticipated. What can we learn? And then feed that back into the next cycle in particular.